Morning in Seoul arrived like polished glass, clear, cold, and filled with reflections. Inside the boutique Luna Luxe, Ada Nwosu adjusted a sequined gown on a mannequin, her brown fingers tracing fabric softer than the life she could afford. Outside, buses hissed, and a child's laughter drifted through the half-open door. Her son, Aoife, waited on the bench with a stuffed bunny pressed to his chest, shoes swinging above the pavement. He was 6, too young to understand sacrifice but old enough to sense it in the tremor of his mother's smile. Ada straightened the window display. To customers, she was a quiet foreign woman with precise manners and tired eyes. To herself, she was a promise. I'll build us a home, no matter what it costs. When the glass door chimed, the air shifted. A man entered, Han Jae-woong, tall, dressed in black like the idea of control. He carried the calm of money and the silence of someone used to obedience. Ada bowed. Good afternoon, sir. Her Korean carried melody, his gaze flickered. Something about that voice pulled memory from beneath 6 years of denial, rain, a cheap umbrella, a woman who spoke in half Korean, half English and disappeared before dawn. He blinked it away. I'm looking for a gift, he said. For someone special? Ada asked politely. A pause. You could say that. As she guided him through the aisles, a reflection caught his eye, a small boy at the window waving shyly. Your son? He asked. Yes. He waits for me after school. Her smile warmed the cold room. Outside, Aoife tripped. A quick cry, a scraped knee. Before Ada could reach him, Jae-woong crouched beside the child, unfolding a white handkerchief. It'll sting a little, he murmured. Count with me. Hannah, dull, set. The boy nodded bravely. Ada rushed out. I'm so sorry. He didn't mean to bother you. It's nothing, Jae-woong said softly. Their eyes met, and for one unguarded second, recognition passed between them, an echo of rain, breath, and a night neither had named. Evening glazed the city in silver. Ada locked the shop, took her child's hand, and walked toward the bus stop. Across the street, headlights glowed. Inside the black sedan, Han Jae-woong watched them vanish into traffic. He shouldn't have cared, but the ache beneath his ribs told another story. He reached for his phone. Tae-jin, he said quietly, find out everything about a woman named Ada Nwosu. She works at Luna Luxe. 1 child. Do it discreetly. Welcome to Munlyt Stories, where Munlyt meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like. Please tell us where you are watching from in the comment, as we would love to give you a shout out sometimes. Subscribe and join the circle. Every story begins with you. In her rooftop apartment, Ada tucked Aoife into bed, unaware of the storm she had reawakened. Outside, Seoul's night glittered, beautiful, unmerciful, alive. Morning crept gently into Seoul, painting pale gold across the cracked walls of Ada's rooftop apartment. The room was small but warm, filled with the sound of boiling water and the faint hum of a worn heater. Aoife sat cross-legged on the bed, scribbling with a blue crayon while his mother stirred porridge on the stove. Mommy, will it snow today? He asked. Ada smiled softly. Maybe soon. But you know what snow means. Extra socks. He giggled. For him, even cold mornings were an adventure. For her, they were a quiet race against time. The cough came suddenly, short but sharp. Ada turned, worry tightening her face. Aoife tried to wave it off, but she heard the rasp beneath his breath. We'll go to the clinic after work, she said gently, handing him a spoon. Just to make sure. Later that afternoon, at Luna Luxe, the boutique shimmered with soft music and the scent of imported perfume. Ada was adjusting a display when a courier in a black suit appeared at the counter. Delivery for Miss Ada Nwosu, he said, bowing slightly. She blinked, confused. I didn't order anything. He handed her a white envelope sealed with wax. No sender. I was told to deliver it personally. When he left, Ada's hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Inside was a document printed in elegant Korean. Han Medical Center, full pediatric care sponsorship, valid for 1 year. And below, a handwritten note in neat Hangul. For Aoife, no strings attached. Her breath caught. She looked around the shop as if expecting someone to appear from behind the mirrors. Nothing, just quiet jazz and polite whispers. Who would do such a thing? That evening, after closing, she clutched the envelope against her chest all the way home. Under the flickering light of the stairwell, she opened the door to find Heir asleep on the couch, his crayon drawings scattered around him, sketches of the boutique, the bus stop, and a tall man with kind eyes. Ada sat beside him and whispered, "Who are you, really?" to the empty air. Across the river, in the gleaming Han Group Tower, Han Jae-woong stood by the window, Seoul's skyline reflected across his calm face. On the desk beside him lay a copy of the same sponsorship document. "She hasn't changed," he murmured to himself, still too proud to ask for help. His assistant Ryu Tae-jin entered quietly. "Shall I prepare the medical account, sir?" "Yes," Jae-woong replied, but anonymously. "I don't want her to know it's me." Tae-jin hesitated. "If your family learns." "They won't," Jae-woong said firmly, eyes fixed on the city lights. "Not yet." Below that glittering skyline, Ada folded the letter carefully and slipped it into a small tin box beneath her pillow. She didn't understand why kindness now felt like danger, but she prayed silently that whoever sent it had no reason to hurt her son. Outside, the wind brushed across Seoul's rooftops like a promise half-spoken, carrying secrets from one world to another. 3 days passed, and the mystery of the letter still clung to Ada's mind like perfume that refused to fade. She tucked the paper deep in her drawer, but every time Heir coughed, the words "full pediatric care, no strings attached" echoed like an unanswered prayer. That morning, the city was gray with drizzle. Ada held Heir's small hand as they walked toward the bus stop. He skipped through puddles, his laughter bright against the cold. "Mommy," he said suddenly, "the man with the shiny shoes waved at me that day." Ada frowned. "What man?" "The one who gave me the handkerchief. He looked like someone from TV." Her heart stuttered for a moment before she smiled faintly. "Maybe just a kind stranger, Heir." But inside, unease stirred. At Han Group Tower, Jae-woong sat in his office, unable to focus on the quarterly reports in front of him. Every line blurred into the memory of Ada's voice. His assistant, Ryu Tae-jin, approached quietly. "Sir, the sponsorship was accepted. The hospital confirmed her visit for next week." Jae-woong nodded, relief softening his usually cold eyes. "Good. Make sure the clinic keeps my name off everything." Tae-jin hesitated. "Are you certain you don't want to meet them?" Jae-woong looked out at the Han River stretching below like silver glass. "Not yet. There's a right time for truth." Across the city, at the Luna Luxe boutique, Ada was helping a customer when her manager, Mrs. Kim, whispered sharply, "Someone's asking for you." Ada turned and froze. A well-dressed woman stood at the counter, tapping her nails impatiently. She was tall, elegant, and carried the confident smile of privilege. "I heard you have a good eye for design," the woman said. "Do you recommend this necklace?" Ada bowed politely. "It suits you, ma'am." "Good," the woman replied, then added coolly, "My fiancé sent me here." Han Jae-woong. The name hit Ada like thunder. Her breath faltered, but she forced a smile. "He has good taste." The woman, Yoon Se-min, tilted her head. "You know him." Ada shook her head quickly. "Only by reputation. Everyone in Seoul knows the Han name." Se-min's eyes lingered on her for a long, assessing second. Interesting." She bought the necklace and left, perfume trailing like warning smoke. When Ada got home that evening, rain poured hard against the tin roof. Heir was drawing again, this time a picture of 3 people. A woman, a child, and a tall man beside them under a single umbrella. Ada knelt beside him, brushing his hair. "Who's this?" "The nice man from the shop," he said simply. "He looked like he knew you, Mommy." Her chest tightened. "Sleep now, Heir," she whispered, though her hands trembled as she turned off the light. Outside, Seoul glittered through rain, but inside her small home, Ada knew one thing clearly. Whatever tied her to that stranger, the threads were no longer hidden. They were beginning to pull. The drizzle had stopped by morning, leaving the streets of Gangnam polished and bright. Ada tied her scarf, kissed Heir's forehead, and sent him off to school with the neighbor's daughter before heading to Luna Luxe. The boutique gleamed like a jewelry box under sunlight, but tension followed her through its doors. Her manager, Mrs. Kim, whispered as soon as she arrived, "That elegant woman from yesterday? She came again this morning. Left this." In her hand was a small red envelope. Inside lay a single card embossed in gold, Yoon Se-min. No message, just the name. Ada frowned. It wasn't unusual for wealthy clients to leave their cards, but something about the gesture made her uneasy. Around noon, the door chimed again. The scent of expensive perfume preceded Se-min's entrance. She wore a crimson dress, and a smile sharp enough to slice silk. "Ah, Miss Ada," she greeted smoothly. "I was hoping you'd be here." Ada bowed politely. "How may I help you today, ma'am?" "I wanted to thank you. My fiancé adored the necklace I bought yesterday." Ada froze. "That's wonderful to hear." "Yes," Se-min continued, stepping closer. "You have a very professional demeanor. It must be hard, working here, raising a child alone." The words were sugar-coated poison. Ada's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone calm. "We all do what we must, ma'am." "Indeed?" Se-min's eyes gleamed. "Tell me, does your son resemble his father?" For a moment, the air thickened. Ada's smile faltered. "That's a very personal question." "Oh, forgive me," Se-min said sweetly. "I'm just curious. You see, my fiancé met a woman years ago, someone foreign, with your kind of accent." Ada's heart thudded once, hard. "Perhaps Seoul isn't as big as we think," Se-min added, her smile turning brittle. Before Ada could respond, the boutique door opened again, and Han Jae-woong himself stepped in. His gaze swept the room, resting briefly on Se-min, then on Ada. "Se-min," he said quietly, "you shouldn't be here." She turned with practiced grace. "I was only shopping. You didn't mention your friend worked here." Ada's fingers clenched behind the counter. "Friend." That word burned. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Jae-woong said evenly. "Let's go." But Se-min wasn't finished. She leaned toward Ada and whispered, "You should be careful, Miss Nwosu. Not everyone belongs in the same story." When the couple left, Ada stood frozen, heart pounding. The boutique suddenly felt too bright, too loud. Mrs. Kim placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't mind her," she said softly. "Some people mistake cruelty for confidence." That night, Ada couldn't sleep. She sat by the window watching Aoife dream peacefully. Across the city, Jae-woong stared out from his penthouse window, guilt clouding his face. He had promised himself to keep distance, but the moment Se-min's words hit the air, he knew the secret between them was no longer safe. Seoul's sky was a cold blue that morning, stretched thin over the city's rising towers. Han Jae-woong hadn't slept. He'd spent the night pacing his penthouse, the faint glow of his phone screen illuminating the unopened file on his desk, the lab report. DNA paternity test subject. Aoife Nwosu, probability, 99.97%. His chest tightened every time he read it. The truth sat heavy, unyielding, undeniable. Aoife wasn't just Ada's son. He was his son, the child he'd lost before he even knew he had one. At 6 a.m., Ryu Tae-jin entered quietly, carrying coffee. "You've been awake all night," he said. "I've been awake for 6 years," Jae-woong muttered, rubbing his temples. "Send another donation to Han Medical Center. Double the amount. Make sure the Nwosu boy's treatment never stops." "Yes, sir." "But how long can you keep this hidden?" Jae-woong's gaze shifted to the window. "As long as I must. Until I can protect them both." Across town, Ada sat in her modest kitchen, the sound of the boiling kettle filling the silence. Aoife was coloring again, this time drawing tall buildings and stick figures holding hands. "Mommy," he said, eyes still on his paper. "Is it bad to be curious?" Ada smiled gently. "Curious about what?" "About where we come from." Her breath caught. "You mean your father?" Aoife nodded slowly. "Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I feel like I'm missing someone's face." Ada's heart twisted, her hand tightening around her teacup. "You're not missing anything, my love," she whispered. "You have everything you need." But she knew the words were half-truths. 4 years. She told herself that her past was buried, Busan, the rainstorm, the stranger who'd vanished before morning. But now, the city itself seemed to be pulling those memories back to the surface. At Han Group Tower, rumors had begun to ripple. Chairman Han Jae-woong, old and proud, had noticed his grandson's distracted demeanor. "You've been leaving early," the chairman said during lunch that afternoon, voice gravelly with suspicion. "Who is she?" "No one important," Jae-woong replied too quickly. The chairman's gaze sharpened. In this family, no one is a dangerous answer. By evening, Jae-woong drove aimlessly through the city until he found himself near Luna Lux. Through the window, he saw Ada helping a customer, serene, graceful, unaware of the war inside him. Ife waited outside, waving at pigeons, his laughter soft against the hum of traffic. Jae-woong's hand tightened on the steering wheel. He whispered to himself, soon. I'll find the right time. That night, as rain began to fall again, Ada found a folded envelope beneath her apartment door. Inside, a single photograph. Her, Ife, and a blurred figure in the background, someone watching them. No message, no signature, only fear. Her hand trembled. Someone knew. The photo trembled in Ada's hands. It wasn't the blurry figure in the background that terrified her, it was the message unspoken. You're being watched. Her heart pounded as she glanced toward the window, half expecting to see someone waiting in the shadows. But the street below was quiet, washed silver by rain. She locked the door, checked the windows twice, and pressed her back against the wall, trying to breathe. Ife, she whispered. The boy stirred in bed, murmuring in his sleep. Ada tucked the photo into a tin box under her mattress, beside the medical voucher, and whispered a prayer in Igbo. Chukwu, protect my child. The next morning, her unease clung to her like perfume. At Luna Lux, she moved through her shift in a haze of worry. Every customer's reflection in the mirror looked suspicious. Every passing glance made her flinch. When she stepped out for lunch, she felt eyes on her back again. Across the street, a man in a dark coat lowered his camera lens. Keep your distance, he muttered into his earpiece. Miss Yoon wants pictures, not headlines. Inside a nearby cafe, Yoon Se-min stirred her latte, scrolling through the latest shots of Ada and her son. The image of the photograph on her phone made her smirk. So the rumors were true, she whispered. Let's see how long before the Han family discovers their hidden heir. Meanwhile, at Han Group Tower, Jae-woong was reviewing quarterly reports when Ryu Tae-jin entered quietly. Sir, there's been movement, Tae-jin said. Someone's watching the Nwosu family. Jae-woong's eyes darkened. Who? We're not sure yet, but the source traces back to someone in social circles connected to Miss Yoon. A cold silence filled the room. She's digging for proof, Tae-jin added cautiously. Then she's closer than I thought, Jae-woong muttered, standing abruptly. Get me everything. Every photo, every tale. I want names. That evening, Ada left the boutique later than usual. The streets shimmered with puddles reflecting Seoul's neon glow. She clutched her purse tightly, glancing behind her as she hurried toward the bus stop. Suddenly, a black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down. Miss Nwosu, a familiar voice called softly. She froze. Han Jae-woong stepped out, holding an umbrella over both of them. You shouldn't walk alone this late, he said, his tone calm but urgent. Ada's eyes widened. What are you doing here? I needed to make sure you're safe. Raindrops fell like whispers between them. Someone's been watching you, he said quietly. I can't explain everything yet, but please be careful. Her pulse quickened. Why would anyone? He met her gaze. Because of me. For a heartbeat, the world held still. The rain, the traffic, the noise. Ada searched his face, realizing there was something in his eyes that scared her and soothed her all at once. And as he guided her toward the car, she knew deep down, the truth she'd spent years running from was now walking beside her in the rain. The rain had softened into a mist by the time Han Jae-woong guided Ada toward the car. Seoul's streetlights shimmered across the wet pavement like broken glass, and the city's hum dimmed to the sound of raindrops against the umbrella. Inside the car, Ada sat stiffly, her hands folded tightly on her lap. Ife's name sat on her tongue, but she swallowed it, unsure how much this man already knew. You said someone's watching me, she said at last. How do you know that? Jae-woong exhaled slowly, his voice low. Because I had someone watching too. Her eyes widened. You what? I wanted to make sure you and your son were safe, he said quietly. Seoul isn't kind to those who stand out. Ada turned to him sharply. You had no right. I know, he said, his tone breaking into honesty. But I couldn't help it. The words hung between them like fog. He looked at her, the way her eyes glistened when she was angry, the quiet power in her voice. For years, he thought she was gone, just a memory of a rainy night in Busan. Now here she was, alive, stronger, but still carrying the same quiet ache. Ada faced the window, the city flashing by. I don't understand why you care, Mr. Han. You're a stranger. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Some strangers carry pieces of our past. Her heart stuttered. Before she could reply, the car stopped in front of her building. She reached for the door, but he caught her wrist gently. Please, he said. Don't walk alone at night. Until this stops, let me protect you. I don't need protection, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Then think of it as a promise, not protection. Ada pulled her hand back slowly, her pulse loud in her ears. Promises are easy in the rain, she said softly, but hard to keep in daylight. He said nothing, only watched as she stepped out into the drizzle and walked toward the stairs. From his car, Jae-woong watched her disappear through the narrow gate. For a moment, he thought of following, but some lines couldn't be crossed yet. Not until truth had a place to stand. Inside, Ada leaned against her door, heart still racing. She could feel his words echoing through the silence. Let me protect you. She wasn't sure if it was comfort or danger. Maybe both. In the next room, Ife stirred awake, his voice drowsy. Mommy, were you outside? Ada smiled faintly, brushing his hair. Just for a little while. He blinked sleepily. Did you meet the nice man again? Her breath caught. What man? The one with the umbrella, he murmured before falling back asleep. Ada stood still in the quiet, the city's glow slipping through the curtains. Somewhere outside, the rain began again, soft, steady, and full of promises waiting to be tested by morning. The following morning, Ada woke to the faint hum of traffic below and the quiet rhythm of Ife's breathing beside her. For a few precious minutes, peace existed, the kind that made her believe the night before had been a dream. But then she saw the umbrella leaning against her door, neatly folded, still wet. A quiet signature. She sighed, running her fingers over the handle. A promise, he called it. But promises from powerful men often came wrapped in danger. At Luna Luxe, the boutique buzzed with its usual elegance. Sunlight bounced off mirrors, perfume hung in the air, and the sound of heels on marble filled the space. Yet Ada couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every reflection felt alive. Every polished surface showed not just her face, but something lurking behind it, fear. Her manager, Mrs. Kim, noticed her unease. You're pale, Ada. Are you all right? Yes, Ada said quickly, forcing a smile. Just tired. Mrs. Kim nodded but didn't believe her. Take a break. I'll handle the counter. Ada slipped into the dressing area at the back of the store and leaned against the mirror. The lights flickered faintly. For a moment, her reflection blurred, replaced by a shadow moving just outside the window. She froze. Then, a sharp knock echoed on the back door. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she opened it, only to find Ryu Tae-jin, dressed in a dark gray suit. Miss Nwosu, he said calmly. Mr. Han sent me. Ada's heart raced. I told him I didn't need help. I know. But he insisted. He handed her a small phone. If anything happens, press this number. No questions, no delays. Before she could protest, he bowed slightly and left through the side alley. Ada stood holding the phone, uncertain whether to feel safer or more trapped. Meanwhile, in the Han family mansion, Yoon Se-min stood before Chairman Han Jae-woong, her expression a perfect blend of charm and concern. Chairman, she said softly, there's something you should know about Jae-woong. His eyes narrowed. Go on. He's been visiting a woman in Gangnam, a foreigner. With a child. The old man's cane hit the floor. A child. Se-min nodded slowly, feigning regret. I only mention this because I care for him and for your family's reputation. By the time Jae-woong returned home that evening, the air in the mansion was heavy with storm. His grandfather was waiting, seated beneath the golden chandelier. Sit, the chairman commanded. Jae-woong obeyed, jaw tight. Tell me about the woman, the old man said. And the boy. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, Jae-woong's voice broke it. Steady, quiet, dangerous. Who told you? But the damage was done. The shadows he tried to hide had stepped into the light. And across the city, Ada stared at her reflection again, watching her own fear take shape. She whispered, "Whatever's coming, I won't run this time." Thunder rolled across Seoul's distant hills that night, a low warning rumble that mirrored the tension inside the Han mansion. The grand dining room, usually a space of quiet formality, had become a battlefield. Han Jae-woong stood at one end of the long table, his hands clasped behind his back. Across from him sat Chairman Hanji, his cane resting beside a half-finished cup of tea. The air between them was heavy with unspoken truths. "So," the old man began, his voice calm but sharp, "there is a woman. And a child." Jae-woong didn't flinch. "Yes. Do you take me for a fool, boy?" the chairman snapped. "Do you think the name Han can survive scandal? You were promised to Seimin. That alliance isn't love," Jae-woong interrupted. The chairman's eyes flared with anger. "Love does not sustain legacy. Power does. You've been raised to protect the family name, not to tarnish it with a mistake you made 6 years ago." The words cut deep. "He's not a mistake," Jae-woong said quietly. "Neither is she." The silence that followed was long, brittle, and full of thunder. Outside the door, Han Min-woo, Jae-woong's uncle, listened in silence. He had always been the voice of reason in a house built on image and tradition. But even he knew this would not end easily. Meanwhile, in Gangnam, Ada felt the first raindrops hit her umbrella as she hurried home from work. The wind picked up, tugging at her scarf. She glanced behind her. No one was there, yet the unease from earlier still lingered. Inside the mansion, the argument escalated. "You will end this," Chairman Han ordered. "Cut all ties with that woman. Marry Seimin, and the board will forgive your absence." "I can't," Jae-woong said firmly. "I won't pretend any longer." The chairman's hand slammed against the table. "Then you will lose everything. Your inheritance, your seat at Han Group, your name." Jae-woong met his grandfather's glare with steady resolve. "If protecting them costs me that, then so be it." For a moment, the old man's expression faltered, anger giving way to something else, perhaps disbelief, perhaps sorrow. But then pride returned, cold and unyielding. "You're just like your father," he muttered, "a man who mistook love for strength." When Jae-woong left the room, the rain had begun to fall harder. His uncle Min-woo followed him down the hall. "You did well," Min-woo said softly. "But the storm has started. Be ready for what it brings." Jae-woong nodded, his jaw tight. "I've waited 6 years for the truth. I can face the thunder." That night, lightning flashed across Seoul. At the same moment, in her tiny rooftop apartment, Ada stared out the window, her reflection merging with the storm outside. She didn't know it yet, but her name had already been spoken inside the walls of the most powerful house in Korea. By morning, Seoul's storm had passed, but its echo lingered inside the Han mansion. News traveled fast among servants and executives. Han Jae-woong had defied the chairman. The obedient heir had become a headline whispered in corridors. The second son's secret family. In his private study, Jae-woong sat staring at the family crest engraved on the wall. He had grown up believing it symbolized honor. Now it felt like a cage. His assistant, Ryu Tae-jin, entered with careful steps. "The board is calling for a meeting," he said quietly. "Miss Yoon is pushing for your removal from the succession line." Jae-woong's eyes hardened. "Let them. The company can replace an heir, but not a conscience." Meanwhile, at Luna Lux, Ada worked in silence. The whispers had reached the boutique. Someone had shown Mrs. Kim a gossip article titled, "Han Group Heir Linked to Foreign Woman." The story blurred details, but the photo was unmistakable, Ada holding Aoife's hand outside the boutique. Mrs. Kim's eyes were kind but worried. "Ada, this could bring trouble." "I didn't ask for this," Ada whispered, trembling. "I just wanted a quiet life." "I know," Mrs. Kim said softly, "but quiet doesn't last long near powerful people." Across town, Yoon Se-min sat in her father's limousine, phone pressed to her ear. "Leak it," she said coldly. "If he wants to throw away his legacy for that woman, let the world see what kind of woman she is." Her driver hesitated. "Ma'am, this could hurt the boy." "Collateral," Se-min replied. "Everyone pays the price when they play in our world." That afternoon, Ada's phone began to buzz relentlessly. Messages poured in, some from strangers, others from coworkers. Photos of her flooded online. Han Heir's secret mistress, mystery African woman, and child linked to Chaebol scandal. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the phone. Aoife, sensing something wrong, came closer. "Mommy, did I do something bad?" he asked, voice small. Ada knelt quickly, holding his face in her palms. "No, my heart. You did nothing wrong. Never think that." Tears blurred her vision. "We'll be fine." But deep down, she didn't believe it. At that same hour, Jae-woong stormed into Han Group's press office, slamming his phone onto the table. "Take it down," he ordered. A young PR officer stammered. "Sir, the article came from Miss Yoon's father's media outlet. We can't." I said take it down. Minutes later, he was in his car, driving through Seoul's chaotic traffic toward Ada's neighborhood. His phone buzzed, his uncle Han Minwoo calling. "Jae-woong," Minwoo said gravely, "once truth hits daylight, you can't hide it again. If you go to her now, the whole world will see." "I don't care," Jae-woong said, voice breaking with determination. "If she must face the fire, then I'll stand in it with her." And as he drove into the fading light, Seoul seemed to hold its breath, because sometimes the price of a name isn't just reputation. It's love. By dawn, Seoul had already chosen sides. Newspapers screamed scandal, social feeds buzzed, and the Han family name, once untouchable, was now whispered with curiosity and disdain. Han Jae-woong's defiance had become the talk of the city, the heir who fell for a foreign woman. Inside her small apartment, Ada sat by the window with Aoife asleep in her lap. The phone wouldn't stop vibrating, messages flashing across the cracked screen. "Who paid you to trap him? You ruined a family. Go back to where you came from." Each word felt like a stone thrown through her quiet life. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of her son. She turned off the phone and whispered, "We'll be all right. Mommy's strong, remember?" Across town, in the gleaming halls of Han Group, the boardroom was a storm of expensive anger. Executives argued, voices overlapping. Public trust is falling. The investors demand a statement. Dismiss him. Let Min-soo take the succession. Chairman Han Jae-woong sat in silence at the head of the table, fingers tapping his cane. When he finally spoke, the room stilled. "Summon Jae-woong," he ordered. "Let the boy answer for himself." Moments later, Jae-woong entered, face calm but eyes burning. He bowed slightly, not out of submission but respect. "If this meeting is about the article," he said evenly, "I'll save you the time." "It's true." Gasps rippled through the room. "You admit it?" One executive shouted. "Yes. I love her. And the boy is mine." The chairman slammed his cane against the floor. "Then you are no longer my grandson." The declaration sliced through the silence. For a heartbeat, even the rain outside seemed to stop. Jae-woong's voice stayed steady. "If that's the cost of honesty, then I'll pay it." He turned and walked out before anyone could speak again. That evening, thunder rolled once more over Seoul. Ada was packing their few belongings when a knock sounded on the door. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, but Aoife ran ahead and opened it. There he was, drenched, breathless, eyes filled with something fierce and fragile. "Ada," he said softly, "you don't have to run." She stared at him, trembling. "Do you know what they're saying about me? About us?" "Yes," he said. "And I don't care." He stepped closer. "They can take my name, my money, everything, but they can't erase the truth. You and Aoife are my family." Ada's eyes filled with tears, anger and love twisting together. "You think love can protect us from them?" Jae-woong reached out, his hand hovering inches from hers. "Maybe not, but I'll protect you myself." And for the first time, Ada didn't pull away. Outside, lightning split the sky, and Seoul, watching from behind its glass walls, finally saw that even power couldn't silence a beating heart. The storm outside had quieted, but the storm inside Ada's heart raged louder than ever. Han Jae-woong stood in her doorway, dripping rain onto the cracked tile floor, his breath visible in the cool air. Behind him, Seoul glowed faintly, a city alive with gossip and judgment. "I shouldn't have come," he said softly, "but I couldn't let you face this alone." Ada's voice trembled with anger. "You shouldn't have come because now they'll find us both." "They already have," he said simply. That truth hit her harder than any rumor. She stepped back, pacing the small room, her arms folded protectively across her chest. You think love fixes what power destroys. You don't understand what this means for me, for Aoife. Jae-woong's eyes softened. I do understand. Because every lie I told to protect my family is now hurting yours. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small folded paper, an official statement. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. I'll tell the truth myself. No more secrets. Ada froze. If you do that, you'll lose everything. He smiled faintly. Then maybe I'll finally be free. Before she could respond, Aoife stirred awake, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? Why is it raining inside? He mumbled, noticing Jae-woong's wet coat. Jae-woong knelt gently. Hey, little man. I'm sorry for coming so late. Aoife blinked at him. You're the man with the umbrella. Jae-woong smiled softly. Yes, I keep my promises. Ada turned away, fighting tears she didn't want him to see. For so long, she built walls around her heart, but the sincerity in his voice chipped at every brick. That night, after Aoife had fallen back asleep, Jae-woong stood by the window watching the rain fade into mist. When I met you in Busan, he said quietly, I was lost. You reminded me there was more to life than duty. I can't lose that again. Ada's tone softened. Busan was another lifetime, Jae-woong. Back then, we didn't know the world explanations. He turned to her. And now we do. Because silence only protects those who lie. She stepped closer, the space between them thick with years of pain and unspoken truth. You'll ruin yourself, she whispered. Maybe, he replied. But at least I'll do it honestly. They stood like that. Two worlds, one heartbeat, until dawn touched the horizon. The next morning, news vents gathered outside the Han mansion. The press waited, cameras ready. Inside, the family seethed. Chairman Han slammed his fist against his desk. He's going to destroy us on live television. Beside him, Yoon Se-min smiled faintly, though her eyes burned with betrayal. He already has, Chairman. He just doesn't know it yet. But across the city, Ada whispered to her reflection, maybe truth is the only thing that can survive fire. And somewhere between power and love, silence finally began to break. Morning broke over Seoul with a restless kind of brightness, the kind that warned of change. At the Han mansion, chaos reigned behind its polished gates. Reporters gathered in a glittering swarm, cameras flashing, microphones raised like weapons. Every outlet in the city had one question: would Han Jae-woong confess? Inside, the heir stood before a mirror, tying his black tie with trembling fingers. For once, his reflection didn't look like power, it looked human. Ryu Tae-jin stood nearby, expression heavy. It's not too late to stop this, he said. Your grandfather will cut you off. Miss Yoon's family will retaliate. Jae-woong gave a small, tired smile. They've already taken everything that matters except my truth. Across the city, Ada sat by the TV, Aoife curled against her side. Her stomach twisted as the screen showed flashing headlines. Han Group press conference, live at 9 a.m. She wanted to turn it off, but she couldn't. She owed him this one moment, to see if he would really stand by what he promised in the rain. At exactly 9, the conference hall filled with light. Journalists buzzed as Jae-woong stepped to the podium, his expression calm, resolute. Good morning, he began, his voice steady though his hands shook slightly. For 6 years, I've carried a silence that doesn't belong to me. Today I'll end it. The murmurs ceased. He continued, yes, the rumors are true. I once loved a woman. Her name is Adaora Nwosu. She is the mother of my child. Gasps rippled across the room, flashes erupting like fireworks. But he didn't stop. She is not a scandal, he said firmly. She is courage. She raised our son alone while I was too blind to see the truth. If anyone is guilty, it's me. At home, Ada's eyes blurred with tears. Aoife looked up. Mommy, is he talking about you? She nodded silently, pressing a hand over her heart. Yes, baby. He's talking about us. In the mansion, Chairman Han Jae-woong watched the broadcast from his study, fury and disbelief etched deep into his features. He's destroying everything, he growled. But Han Min-woo, standing quietly beside him, whispered, No, father. Maybe he's saving something we lost long ago, honor. Back at the podium, a reporter called out, "Mr. Han, what happens now?" Jae-woong exhaled. "Now. I live honestly, and I protect them, no matter what your headlines say." When he left the stage, he felt lighter, though the weight of consequence hadn't yet arrived. Outside, the world had already begun to roar, half in outrage, half in awe. In her apartment, Ada turned off the TV. Her tears came then, quiet and uncontrollable. For the first time in years, she wasn't hiding. Through the window, Seoul glowed under late morning light, a city reborn in truth. And though she feared what would come next, one thing was certain: there was no going back to silence. Seoul did not sleep that night. Every news outlet replayed Han Jae-woong's confession in endless loops. Every phone buzzed with headlines that fractured a dynasty. Han Group heir admits to secret family. Corporate empire faces crisis over love scandal. By morning, protesters, paparazzi, and opportunists crowded the gates of the Han mansion. Reporters shouted questions that echoed across the stone walls like bullets. Inside, silence was heavier than thunder. Chairman Han Jae-woong sat in his study, the TV muted but the headlines still visible on screen. His cane tapped rhythmically against the marble floor, a measured fury. He looked up as Yoon Se-min entered, immaculate in black, her composure the picture of wounded elegance. "Are you satisfied?" he asked coldly. Se-min bowed slightly. "I'm not cruel, Chairman." But he chose her. "I only revealed what he tried to hide." His eyes narrowed. "You've shamed this family too, Miss Yoon. Don't mistake vengeance for victory." Her smile didn't falter. "Then I'll leave with my dignity intact." She bowed again, a final performance, and walked out of the mansion forever. Meanwhile, at the Han Group tower, chaos reigned. Stocks dipped, board members shouted, and PR teams scrambled to draft statements. But inside one quiet office, Han Min-woo worked calmly through the noise. He sent out an emergency press release. "The Han family stands by integrity and accountability. There will be restructuring, but no erasure of truth." When a secretary asked if the chairman had approved it, he replied simply, "Not yet." Across town, in her small apartment, Ada tried to keep life normal. She ironed her uniform, packed Defies' lunch, and walked him to the school gate. But every glance from passing parents burned. One mother whispered loudly, "That's her, the woman from the news." Ada kept her chin high and kissed Defies' forehead. "Be brave, okay?" He nodded. "Like you, Mommy." That afternoon, as she returned home, a luxury black car waited by her building. Jae-woong stepped out, dressed simply this time, no suit, no driver, just a man stripped of armor. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I needed to see you," he replied. "The company froze my accounts. The press follows me everywhere. But I don't care. I just want to know you're safe." Ada's voice shook. "We're fine, but I'm scared for you." He smiled faintly. "I think I'm finally learning what freedom feels like." Before she could respond, a loud crash interrupted them, a brick shattering against the car's windshield. A group of angry bystanders shouted from across the street. "Go back home," someone yelled. "She doesn't belong here." Jae-woong moved instinctively, shielding Ada behind him. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice carrying through the chaos. For a moment, the crowd froze at the fire in his tone. Then, slowly they retreated. Ada's hands trembled as she whispered, "You'll lose everything for me." He turned to her, eyes steady. "Then it's not a loss, it's a choice." That night, the Han mansion no longer felt like a palace, it felt like a tomb. Servants moved quietly through the halls, careful not to speak too loudly. The air was heavy with what had been lost: reputation, control, and something far more fragile, pride. Chairman Han Jae-woong sat alone in the grand study, the portraits of his ancestors staring down like silent judges. The TV played muted news, clips of his grandson's confession. Every headline carried his family name through mud and admiration alike. When Han Min-woo entered, the chairman didn't look up. "I built this house for legacy," he muttered. "And he's tearing it down for love." Min-woo's voice was calm but steady. "Maybe love is the only legacy worth leaving, Father." The old man's hand tightened on his cane. "Don't preach to me. The world remembers power, not sentiment." Min-woo stepped closer. "Then why does the world love the story more than the empire?" The chairman finally looked up, his son's quiet rebellion reflected in his own weary eyes. He'll regret this. Or maybe he'll live free, Minwoo said softly. Something none of us ever did. Meanwhile, Han Jae-woong sat in a small motel room on the outskirts of Seoul. His suit hung from the back of a chair, wrinkled and useless now. The phone buzzed with calls from lawyers, journalists, and executives, but he ignored them all. The only number he wanted to see hadn't appeared once. Until it did. Ada. He answered instantly. Ada! Her voice trembled through the speaker. Are you safe? I'm fine, he said quietly. What about you and Aoife? We're all right, she whispered. But the police came by earlier. They said someone from your company reported vandalism near the building. I'll handle it, he said immediately. No, Ada replied. You've done enough. Let me handle it this time. For the first time, he heard something new in her tone, strength wrapped in exhaustion. You don't have to carry everything alone, he said gently. I've been doing that for 6 years, she replied. But maybe it's time I stop running. Across town, Yoon Se-min sat alone in her penthouse, wine glass trembling in her hand. She stared at the city lights and replayed Jae-woong's words from the press conference. She is courage. Those 3 words stung worse than any insult. In her reflection, she saw what she'd become, beautiful, bitter, and utterly alone. For the first time, she realized she had fought not for love, but for ownership. At dawn, Chairman Han stood by his window watching the sun rise over Seoul. The golden light hit the family crest carved above the doorway, once a symbol of pride. Now it looked fractured. He turned to Minwoo, who stood quietly beside him. Find them, he said. Minwoo frowned. To punish them? The chairman's voice was tired, almost human. To understand them. And as sunlight touched the cold marble floors, a dynasty built on control began to crumble, brick by brick, truth by truth. The morning air in Seoul carried the hush of something about to change. For the first time in years, Chairman Han Jae-woong left the mansion without his entourage or driver. His presence alone, stooped yet commanding, drew quiet stares as his car pulled into a modest district of Gangnam. He had never been there before. The streets were narrow, cluttered with tiny shops and faded signs, a world away from the marble corridors of Han Group. Yet, here was where his grandson's heart had settled. At the same time, Ada was returning from the market with a small bag of groceries, Aoife skipping beside her. She froze when she saw the black sedan parked outside her building. A man in a gray suit stepped out first, then opened the back door. Chairman Han emerged slowly, leaning on his cane, his gaze sharp and unreadable. Mrs. Nwosu, he asked in a deep, formal tone. Ada's voice faltered. Why, yes. The silence that followed felt heavier than rain. Aoife, curious and fearless, peered up at him. Are you the man from the TV who shouted at Daddy? The chairman blinked, startled by the boy's honesty. Then, to Ada's surprise, he chuckled, a dry, reluctant sound. It seems I am. Ada quickly bowed. Chairman Han, if you came to threaten me, please don't do it in front of my son. I didn't come to threaten you, he said simply. I came to see what kind of woman could make my grandson defy me. Ada's fingers tightened around the grocery bag. I didn't make him do anything. He chose truth. I just survived it. The chairman studied her for a long moment. Her clothes were simple, her face tired, but her eyes, steady, unflinching, held something he hadn't seen in years, dignity. He nodded slightly. You have courage. That's rare. Aoife tugged Ada's sleeve. Mommy, is he mean? She smiled softly. No, sweetheart. Just old. For the first time in a long while, Chairman Han laughed. It startled even his driver. He glanced at the boy again. You look like your father, he murmured. Then he turned back to Ada. May I come in? She hesitated, then opened the door. Inside, the small apartment smelled of soap and warm tea. It was neat, full of little touches, handmade curtains, a child's drawings on the wall, a world built from nothing but care. The chairman looked around quietly, his expression unreadable. He lost his mother young, he said suddenly, his voice softer now. Maybe that's why he found you. Ada met his gaze, unsure if it was an insult or an understanding. Before leaving, he paused at the doorway. The world will never stop talking, he said. But if you can endure it together, perhaps you'll outlive the noise. He looked at Ife again and smiled faintly. Take care of your mother, young man. As the car pulled away, Ada stood still by the window, her heart caught between disbelief and hope. For the first time, the most powerful man in Korea had come to her door, not to destroy, but to listen. 2 days after the unexpected visit, Ada still replayed it in her mind. Every word, every glance, every silence. The chairman of Han Group, a man whose name could shake industries, had stepped into her small apartment, drunk her tea, and left with neither insult nor threat. She hadn't told Jae-woong yet. She didn't know how. How could she explain that his grandfather's eyes had carried not just pride, but something close to regret? That evening, while Ife colored quietly at the table, Ada's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Nwosu, a polite voice said in Korean. This is Han Min-woo. The chairman asked me to deliver a message. Her stomach tightened. Yes. He requests your presence for dinner tomorrow evening. You and your son. Ada froze. Dinner at the mansion? Yes. The chairman wishes to speak formally, without the press or interference. She ended the call and sat in silence. The sound of Ife's crayons scratching paper filled the room. Mommy, he asked. Why do you look scared? She smiled weakly. We've been invited to dinner. Like fancy dinner? With cake. Ada laughed softly. Maybe. The next evening, a black car arrived at their door again. This time, Ada wore a simple cream dress, clean, pressed, respectful. Ife wore a small navy suit, his curls neatly combed. As they drove through the glowing city, Ada's heartbeat echoed louder than the hum of the engine. When the gates of the Han mansion opened, it felt like stepping into another world. Lanterns glowed along the driveway, and uniformed attendants bowed as they entered. Chairman Han Jae-woong waited at the door himself, an act that shocked even his staff. Welcome, he said simply. Inside, the dining hall gleamed under chandeliers. Yet despite the grandeur, the atmosphere was strangely quiet, almost intimate. Jae-woong was already there, standing by the window. When he turned and saw them, something broke in his expression, relief mixed with awe. You came, he whispered. Ada's voice was soft. He invited us. The chairman gestured toward the table. Sit. Let's not waste formality on an empty stomach. Dinner began in silence. The clinking of utensils sounded like distant thunder. Ife, innocent and curious, broke the tension first. Grandpa, why is your house so big? The old man blinked, then chuckled. Because I forgot to stop building when I got old. Ada smiled faintly, tension easing. Halfway through the meal, the chairman set down his chopsticks. You've caused quite a storm, he said to Jae-woong. But perhaps storms are sometimes needed to wash away pride. Ada looked up, startled. He continued, You will always carry the Han name. But now, it seems, you've given it something real. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Ife reached across the table and handed the old man a drawing, a stick-figure family holding hands. That's us, he said proudly. The chairman's eyes softened. Then I suppose this dinner was overdue. And for the first time in years, laughter, gentle, genuine, filled the Han mansion. The day after the dinner, Seoul felt gentler somehow. The chaos had not vanished. Headlines still buzzed, reporters still hovered, but within the tall walls of the Han mansion, something had shifted. For the first time in years, laughter had echoed through those corridors. Quiet laughter, fragile and uncertain, but real. Han Jae-woong sat by the terrace the next morning, his cup of tea untouched as he replayed the previous night in his mind. Ada's soft voice, Ife's innocent questions, and his grandfather's unexpected smile. It all felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. When the door opened, he turned. It was Han Min-woo, carrying a small brown envelope. Father asked me to deliver this, he said. Jae-woong frowned. Another lecture? Min-woo smiled faintly. Maybe a beginning instead of an ending. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. A man who can protect love is worth more than a man who can protect wealth. Jiante. For a long time, Jae-woong just stared at the words. Then, for the first time in months, he smiled. Meanwhile, across town, Ada stood by the window of her small apartment, folding Ife's school uniform. The morning sunlight bathed her in gold, and for once, the air didn't feel heavy. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number again. She hesitated before answering. "Mrs. Nwosu," came a warm, familiar voice. "This is Chairman Han." Ada nearly dropped the phone. "See, Chairman. I wanted to thank you," he said simply. "Your dinner last night reminded me that families are not built by reputation, but by grace. I've arranged for a scholarship in your son's name. No publicity. Just my apology." Her breath caught. "You don't have to." "I do," he interrupted gently. "Because for the first time, my grandson's happiness feels like something I didn't earn, but something I must protect." When the call ended, Ada pressed the phone to her chest, tears forming quietly. For 6 years, she had been a ghost in someone else's story. Now she was being written into it, boldly, truthfully, beautifully. That evening, as dusk fell over Seoul, Jae-woong arrived at her door. This time, there were no cameras, no whispers, just him. "You look lighter," Ada said softly. "Maybe because my family finally sees what I see," he replied. They stood by the window, watching the lights of the city shimmer below. Ife ran up to them, waving his new school backpack. "Mommy, Daddy, look, it has my name." Jae-woong lifted him easily into his arms. "It's a strong name," he said, smiling. "It carries love and courage." Ada's eyes met his, and for the first time, the silence between them wasn't heavy, it was peace. Outside, the Han Mansion's balcony lights glowed faintly in the distance. For a family once divided by pride, healing had begun, not as a grand announcement, but as a quiet tide that washed gently over old wounds. Weeks passed, and Seoul began to forget the scandal that had once shaken its towers. In the world of power and gossip, yesterday's outrage was always tomorrow's silence. But for Han Jae-woong and Ada, what followed was not silence, it was rebuilding. The Han Group had weathered the storm. Stocks steadied, investors returned, and the chairman, once the symbol of unbending pride, had become an emblem of humility. His quiet acceptance of Ada and Ife had softened the edges of a family once defined by its walls. On a mild spring morning, Jae-woong stood in the courtyard of the Han Mansion, watching his grandfather walk slowly among the flowering trees. It was the first time they had spoken since the dinner. "You wanted to see me, Grandfather?" he asked. The old man nodded. "There's a board meeting today. You'll be attending." Jae-woong hesitated. "You reinstated me?" "I didn't," the chairman said calmly. "The board did. They believe a man who can face the world's judgment can lead better than one who hides from it." For a moment, Jae-woong was speechless. The old man's tone softened. "You restored this family's name, not by perfection, but by honesty. Don't waste that." Later that afternoon, the board meeting began. Cameras flashed as Jae-woong entered the marble hall, his posture straight but humble. When he sat at the head of the table, it was not as the prodigal heir, but as a man reborn. Meanwhile, at Luna Lux, Ada's life quietly transformed. The boutique owner, Mrs. Kim, had promoted her to assistant manager, praising her grace under pressure. "You handled scandal with dignity," Mrs. Kim said. "That's rarer than beauty." Ada smiled shyly. "I just did what I had to do." That evening, Jae-woong came to the boutique after work, his tie loosened and his expression relaxed in a way she hadn't seen before. "How was your day, CEO Han?" she teased lightly. He grinned. "Strangely peaceful. The board voted me back in." Grandfather pretended not to smile, but I saw it. Ada's laughter filled the room, warm and bright. When they reached home, Ife ran into his father's arms. "Daddy, I told my teacher we're all Hans now." Ada blinked. "You did what?" Jae-woong chuckled. "It's all right. I was going to ask you about that anyway." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small envelope. Inside was a document, legal, formal, and life-changing. Petition for family registration. Adaora Nwosu and Ife Han. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You're giving us your name?" He cupped her face gently. "No, Ada. You've already given meaning to mine." As the evening sun faded behind Seoul's skyline, the three of them stood together by the window, framed by the golden light of a city that had once tried to tear them apart. And for the first time, the Han name didn't represent power, it represented love. Spring melted into early summer, and with it came a peace Ada had never known. The city that once whispered her name with scandal now spoke it with quiet admiration. The woman who softened the Han Heir, they said. But to Ada, titles and rumors no longer mattered. What mattered was the laughter echoing through their home. Their apartment near the Han estate had grown brighter, not by wealth, but by warmth. Ife's drawings filled the walls, stick figures of a smiling family beneath sunny skies. Sometimes, Jae-woong would come home from the office, loosen his tie, and sit on the floor beside Ada, helping Ife with his school projects. It was an ordinary kind of happiness, but to them, it felt sacred. One morning, Ada woke to find Jae-woong already dressed, standing by the window. "You're leaving early," she said sleepily. He smiled, adjusting his cufflinks. "Today's important. We're launching the Han Foundation for Women and Children, something I promised the board and you." She sat up, startled. "Me?" He nodded. "You taught me that the strongest people are the ones the world overlooks. This foundation is for them, for the Adas who survive quietly." Later that day, Seoul's press gathered at the Han Group auditorium, expecting another corporate announcement. Instead, Jae-woong stood before them in a simple suit, Ada seated in the front row beside the chairman. "My family name once meant power," he said into the microphone, "but today it means service. Because no legacy is worth keeping if it costs us our humanity." The applause began slowly, then grew. Cameras flashed, but Ada wasn't nervous this time. She watched him with pride, her heart full, her fear gone. After the ceremony, Chairman Han Jae-woong approached her. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "You gave my grandson back his soul." Ada bowed politely. "And you gave him the freedom to be himself. We both did our part." The old man chuckled softly. "You're not like anyone I've ever met. Keep him grounded. He forgets to eat when he's thinking too hard." That evening, as the family gathered on the balcony overlooking the Han Gardens, the air smelled of spring blossoms and new beginnings. Ife ran around chasing bubbles, his laughter carrying into the golden dusk. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Ada asked. Jae-woong nodded, his gaze tender. "Every day, from Busan to Seoul, from silence to truth." He took her hand gently. "And this is our real empire." She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Not built by power," he finished softly, "but by love." As night settled, fireworks from a nearby festival shimmered over the Han estate, their colors dancing in the sky. Ada held Ife close, her heart steady and full. The world might remember the Hans for their fortune, but history would remember this, the day love rebuilt a dynasty. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Munlyt Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Munlyt Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. See you in the next story.